Today we're going to talk about printmaking. There are many different methods of printmaking. I'm sure you have seen several of these methods whether you know it or not. Printmaking money is nowadays done with a printer connected to a computer, but in the past it was done by someone called a printer who would arrange all of the lettering, each little individual stamp as a letter, and arrange them all, roll ink on all of those letters, and place a piece of paper on and roll it through a printing press. Posters, all of those different forms of printing were once done at an actual printer, not from the printer from your computer. There's also screen printing. So I'm sure you all have t-shirts that have words and images on them. My t-shirt is created by a method called screen printing. There is block printing, where you take a wooden block and carve into the surface, put ink on that, and then stamp it onto paper. I like to use an art form or a printing method called gelatin printing. So I have a gelatin plate here, and I roll ink onto the gelatin plate, and then I am able to use stencils and different textures to create images. Today we're going to talk about stamping. Stamping is another kind of monoprinting where you're creating one image using stamps or objects. So you're going to look around your house. I rummaged through my recycling carefully and found some objects that I can use to print with. So I found this spice jar, this empty rinsed spice jar. I found a toilet paper tube. I found a soup can. Now I also checked to make sure this was safe to use so that there were no sharp edges and that it was clean. I don't want to tip this over and have soup spilled all over my paper. I found some cookie cutters, so I'm going to use these cookie cutters to stamp images onto my paper as well. And I found some cardboard that I cut up into squares or rectangles that I can stamp down and up with. I'm going to start with blue tempera paint, and what I want to do is just make sure that I kind of, whatever tool that I'm using, I just kind of swirl the paint around just to make sure that all surfaces of this object that I'm printing with have paint on them if I want to have this full circle printed onto my page. And then the idea with this is I'm going to use this object to print circle shapes on my page. Now I might just start by playing around with these shapes and seeing what happens. I don't have any idea in mind of what I want to create yet, but I'm just seeing how this shape looks on my paper. I also have some other, this is an empty spice jar that I can use the circle edge of this one, and I can see what that looks like as I stamp or print it onto my paper. Now, one of the great things about printmaking is that there are imperfections. It's not perfect. That's really kind of how you know it is a print, is because it's going to, there are some unexpecteds that happen. Like for example, when I lifted this one off, a little bit splattered around the shape, and I don't really mind that. It's the imperfections to me it's part of the process, and it shows the process. All right, I can print inside circles, I can overlap, so I can play around with this and create a composition with these different shapes. Here I have a empty raisin jar. Okay, and again I'm going to stamp down and up. Down and up. Down and up. All right. Now as you start to see some of the paint get lighter and lighter, that means you need to either print again or it's time to move on to a new shape. So toilet paper tubes or paper towel tubes are also great for this project. Great use of recycled materials. Okay. Okay, now you could stop there, you could let it dry, you could color in the areas once it's dry, use it kind of like almost like a coloring page. I could get a new color of paint and do some more stamping. So I might see what happens now if I experiment a little bit with yellow. I could use the other side of this tube. You could also cut this tube up into smaller tubes that you would then have some more circles to print with and more options if you wanted to use lots of different colors. You can also change the shape of these tubes because the cardboard is so flimsy that if you wanted it to be more like an oval shape, you could pinch it a little bit and then see what happens. Okay. Some people like to even make it more like a heart shape. Kind of pinch the bottom and then push in the top. Creates that heart shape that you can then stamp with. So let's see what that looks like. Push these out of the way. And you want to really make sure that the whole part gets stamped down. So there we go. I had to press a little bit more. Okay, so here I found a piece of cardboard out in my recycling bin. And I'm just going to go ahead and cut a piece out of this. Now I'm going to be using the edge of this cardboard to stamp down and up. I might actually, well, I'll stick with blue for now. Let's show you what that looks like. So then what I'm going to do is dip the cardboard, the edge of the cardboard, into the paint. Whoops. And I can go ahead and stamp down and up. Notice that creates a nice straight edge. And sometimes it doesn't print completely. You can always try to place it back down and up again, or just go with the imperfection, and that's okay too. So using the edge of cardboard, I can use the shorter edge or the longer edge. And then one project that I have done with my artists in the past is stamping robots. So we take this idea that we just created here. Now this is more of an abstract image, but you could try to make a face or a robot or a landscape or something else using these stamped shapes.